The desperate proposal. Violet Chen stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. 3 months ago, her small event coordination business had collapsed when her largest client declared bankruptcy, taking her savings with them. Now, standing in the hallway of her crumbling building, she felt the walls of her life closing in. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Miss Chen, my employer has a proposition for you," a crisp voice announced. "He will meet you at Meridian Tower, penthouse suite, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Come alone." Before she could respond, the line went dead. The billionaire's offer. The elevator to the penthouse felt like ascending into another world. When the doors opened, Violet found herself face to face with Damien Cross, the tech mogul whose face graced business magazines and financial news. He was younger than she expected, perhaps 35, with sharp features and eyes that calculated probabilities instead of emotions. "Miss Chen," he said without preamble, "I need a wife for 18 months. You need financial stability. I believe we can help each other." Violet's breath caught. "Excuse me." Damien gestured to a leather folder on the glass table. "My company is merging with a family-owned corporation. Their board values traditional family structures. I need to present the image of stability. You need approximately $200,000 to clear your debts and restart your business." "You researched me," she said, feeling exposed. "Thoroughly. You are intelligent, presentable, and desperate enough to consider this seriously." He paused. "No physical relationship. No emotional entanglement. Separate living quarters. Public appearances only when necessary. When the merger completes, we dissolve the marriage quietly." Violet sank into the chair, her mind racing. This was insane. This was also her only lifeline. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you have nothing to lose and no connections to my world. You won't complicate things." The words stung, but they were honest. Violet picked up the contract, reading through pages of clauses that reduced marriage to a business transaction. No affection, no personal questions, no deviation from the script. Crossing the line, she signed 3 hours later. Her signature feeling like a betrayal of every romantic notion she had ever held. The money appeared in her account before midnight. By morning, movers were packing her few belongings. Damien's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of Meridian Tower. Her quarters consisted of a pristine bedroom, suite with a view that made her old neighborhood look like a distant memory. Everything was white, glass, and chrome. Beautiful and cold. "Your wardrobe consultant arrives at 9, Damien informed her that first morning. "Media training at 11. We have a tech conference Friday where we will make our first appearance." "That's 3 days away," Violet protested. "Then we have work to do." The next 72 hours blurred together. Stylists transformed her appearance. Media coaches taught her to smile without revealing emotion, to answer questions with practiced vagueness, to exist beside Damien without disrupting his carefully controlled image. The first Test the Tech conference was held in a convention center that could house aircraft. Thousands of attendees, hundreds of journalists, all waiting to dissect every detail of Damien Cross's surprise marriage announcement as they entered together. Violet felt the weight of 1,000 eyes. Damien's hand rested lightly on her lower back, a gesture that looked intimate but felt mechanical. "Mr. Cross, who is your companion?" a reporter shouted. "My wife, Violet," Damien replied smoothly. "We married quietly last month." The questions erupted like fireworks. How did they meet? Why the secrecy? What did she think of his controversial AI ethics policies? Violet answered carefully, following her training. Beside her, Damien remained unreadable, a fortress of composure. Then someone asked about children. "We are focused on our careers currently," Violet said, but her voice cracked slightly. The moment passed unnoticed by everyone except Damien. Later, in the car returning to the penthouse, he surprised her. "You handled that well," he said. "The question about children caught you off guard." "I'm sorry. I should have anticipated." "You recovered quickly. That matters more." He paused, looking out the window. My mother asked me the same question once. I told her business was my only family. She never asked again. It was the first personal thing he had ever shared. Violet studied his profile, seeing for the first time the exhaustion beneath the control. That must have hurt her, Violet said softly. It did. But it was honest. The car fell silent. Something had shifted, barely perceptible, but undeniable. The contract was still in place. The rules still clear, but in that moment, Violet realized the most dangerous thing about their arrangement. It was already becoming harder to remember. This was not real, unexpected intimacy 3 weeks into the arrangement. Violet discovered that living with someone you barely knew created strange intimacies. She learned that Damien worked until 3 in the morning most nights, that he drank his coffee, black and bitter, that he had nightmares he never mentioned but she could hear through the walls. One particular evening, she found him on the balcony at midnight, staring at the city lights with an expression that looked dangerously close to loneliness. "Trouble sleeping?" she asked, stepping outside. "The merger is facing complications," he said without looking at her. "The family patriarch is questioning my commitment to traditional values. Because of me. Because he thinks our marriage is too convenient." Damien finally turned to face her. "He wants to have dinner with us. Alone. No scripts, no handlers. Just 2 couples sharing a meal." Violet's stomach tightened. "That's not what we agreed to." "I know, but if we refuse, the merger collapses. 3 years of work vanishes." She studied him in the moonlight, seeing the cracks in his armor. "What do you need from me?" "Authenticity," he said quietly. "Or the illusion of it." The dinner was scheduled for the following week. In preparation, they began spending more time together. Not rehearsing answers, but learning real details about each other's lives. Favorite books, childhood memories, fears they had never spoken aloud. Violet told him about her father, who had died when she was 16, leaving her mother to raise 3 children alone. How she had built her business from nothing, only to watch it crumble. Damien shared pieces of himself he claimed he never discussed. A controlling father who measured worth in quarterly earnings. A younger sister who had walked away from the family fortune to teach art in rural communities. His own realization that he had built an empire but forgotten how to build a life. "Sometimes I wonder what I'm protecting," he admitted one evening, over takeout in his study. "I have everything except a reason to have it." Violet set down her chopsticks. "Then why keep going?" "Because stopping feels like admitting I wasted 20 years chasing the wrong thing." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. Without thinking, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. He didn't pull away. The charity auction arrived like a storm. Dressed in designer gowns and tuxedos, it was held at an art gallery. Glass walls displaying contemporary pieces that cost more than Violet's former apartment building. The event benefited children's education programs, which Damien supported generously but rarely attended. Tonight, he had no choice. The patriarch would be watching. Violet wore a deep sapphire dress that the stylist insisted brought out her eyes. Damien wore his standard black tuxedo, though she noticed he adjusted his tie 3 times in the car. "Nervous?" she asked. "Prepared," he corrected. Inside, the gallery buzzed with wealth and influence. Violet recognized several faces from magazine covers and news broadcasts. She felt the familiar weight of being observed, evaluated, judged. Then, Natasha Sterling arrived. She entered like someone who owned every room she walked into. Platinum hair swept into an elegant twist, a crimson dress that announced power rather than beauty. Her eyes found Damien immediately. "Natasha was my business partner 5 years ago," Damien said quietly, his jaw tightening. "She wanted to merge our companies through marriage. I refused. She's been undermining me ever since." Natasha approached with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where to strike. "Damien," she said warmly, kissing both his cheeks. "And this must be the famous wife. How delightful that you finally found someone willing to play the part." Violet felt the insult like a slap. Before Damien could respond, she stepped forward. "It's interesting," Violet said calmly. How some people assume that strength requires isolation. Damien didn't find someone to play a part. He found someone who reminds him that success without connection is just expensive loneliness. Natasha's smile froze. Around them, several conversations quieted. How philosophical, Natasha replied coolly. I wonder if you'll feel the same when the novelty wears off. The only thing novel here, Violet continued, is watching someone mistake bitterness for wisdom. Damien's hand found Violet's waist, not to restrain her, but to support her. Natasha's eyes flickered between them, seeing something that made her expression shift from amusement to calculation. Enjoy the auction, Natasha said, her smile sharp as she walked away. Violet's heart pounded. She had just made an enemy of one of the most powerful women in the industry. That was reckless, Damien said. She turned to him, expecting anger. Instead, she found something that looked dangerously close to admiration. That was honest, he continued quietly. Thank you. The crack in the armor later that night, after the auction concluded and they returned to the penthouse, the careful distance between them felt impossible to maintain. You didn't have to defend me, Damien said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. Yes, I did, Violet replied, because what she said wasn't true. He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing. How do you know? Because I've been watching you for weeks. The way you remember everyone's names, from the doorman to the junior analysts. How you donated anonymously to that scholarship fund. The notes you leave for your housekeeper thanking her for small kindnesses. You're not cold, Damien. You're protected. The words hung in the air between them. This arrangement was supposed to be simple, he said, his voice rougher than usual. I know. But you make it complicated. I know that too. He set down his glass and moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. The contract has rules for a reason, he said. To protect us, she finished. Yes, from what? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw the answer in his eyes before he spoke it. From this, the space between them compressed to nothing. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Every instinct told her to step back, to remember the agreement, to protect herself. Instead, she leaned into his touch. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know, but neither of them moved away. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous, until Damien's phone shattered it with an insistent ring. He stepped back, clearing his throat, reaching for the device. It's my assistant. The patriarch wants to move the dinner to tomorrow night. Reality crashed back. Violet nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. I should go to bed, she said. Violet, good night. Damien, she left before he could finish, before the careful walls they had built could crumble completely. But as she closed her bedroom door, she knew something irreversible had happened. The contract was still binding. The rules were still clear, but the distance they promised was already gone, and pretending otherwise was becoming the biggest lie of all. In his study, Damien stood alone, staring at the wine glasses, understanding that the merger was no longer the only thing at risk. Everything was. The Gala of Reckoning. The corporate gala was scheduled for Saturday evening at the Grandview Hotel, a venue that had hosted presidents and royalty. Every major investor in the merger would attend, along with the media outlets that shaped public opinion about corporate leadership. This was not just another appearance. This was the final test. Damien had been distant since they almost kissed, burying himself in work, communicating through his assistant. Violet understood. She had been avoiding him too, eating meals in her room, leaving for walks when she heard him approaching. The dinner with the patriarch had gone well. Awkwardly intimate in ways that felt both genuine and terrifying. But afterward, the silence between them had grown heavier. Now, standing in her bedroom while the stylist made final adjustments to her gown, Violet felt the weight of what was coming. Tonight would determine everything. The merger, their arrangement, and whatever was growing between them that neither dared name. The dress was champagne silk that caught the light like liquid gold, simple, elegant, expensive, the kind of dress that made a statement without saying a word. When she emerged, Damien was waiting in the foyer, and the look on his face made her breath catch. "You look," he started, then stopped. "Contractually appropriate," she offered, trying to lighten the moment. "Devastating," he finished quietly. The car ride was silent, tension coiling between them like a living thing. As they pulled up to the hotel, Damien finally spoke. "Natasha will be there tonight. She's been spreading rumors that our marriage is a sham, trying to undermine the merger. Is she wrong?" Violet asked before she could stop herself. Damien turned to her, his expression unreadable. "That depends on which part you're questioning." Before she could respond, the door opened, and they were swept into the glittering chaos of the gala. The performance unravels the ballroom was a masterpiece of excess. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Orchestra music swirled through conversations conducted in hushed tones that carried more weight than shouting. Violet recognized faces from television, magazines, the kind of people whose decisions affected thousands of lives. She and Damien moved through the crowd with practiced ease, a perfectly coordinated dance they had performed dozens of times. Smile, greet, deflect, move on. But tonight felt different. Violet could sense eyes following them, assessing, judging. Then the patriarch approached, the elderly man whose family corporation held the key to the merger. He was accompanied by his wife, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp mind. "Damien," the patriarch said warmly, "and Violet, you both look wonderful." They made polite conversation, discussing the charity the gala supported, mutual acquaintances, safe topics. But then the patriarch's wife leaned in. "May I ask you something personal, dear?" she said to Violet. Violet felt Damien tense beside her. "Of course. Do you love him?" The question cut through all pretense. Around them, conversations continued, but Violet felt the world narrow to this moment. She could lie. She should lie. That was the agreement. Instead, she looked at Damien, seeing her own fear reflected in his eyes. "Yes," she said simply. "I do." The patriarch's wife smiled. "Good, because he looks at you the way my husband looked at me 50 years ago. Like you're the only real thing in a room full of performances." Damien's hand found Violet's, squeezing once. The patriarch and his wife moved on, leaving them standing in the middle of the ballroom. Hands intertwined, the careful distance between them finally irrevocably closed, the breaking point. Then Natasha's voice cut through the moment, like a blade. "How touching," she announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Though I have to wonder how long this charming performance will last." She stood a few feet away, champagne glass raised, eyes glittering with malice. "Natasha," Damien warned, his voice low. "What?" she said innocently. "I'm simply curious about your sudden transformation from confirmed bachelor to devoted husband, especially given the timing with your merger." She turned to the gathering crowd. "Tell me, does anyone else find it convenient that Damien suddenly found love right when he needed to appear stable and traditional?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Violet felt dozens of eyes boring into her, judging, calculating. "That's enough," Damien said, stepping forward. "Is it?" Natasha pressed. "Or is the truth that you paid this woman to play a role? That your marriage is nothing more than a contract designed to manipulate perception?" The ballroom fell silent. Even the orchestra seemed too quiet. Violet felt her chest tighten, knowing that anything she said would sound like a lie. That the truth was too complicated to defend. Then a voice from the crowd spoke up. "So what if he did?" Everyone turned. A young executive Violet recognized from previous events stepped forward. "Maybe it started as a business arrangement," the woman continued. "But I've watched them together for months. The way they look at each other when they think no one's watching. How he softens when she enters a room. How she defends him even when it costs her." She looked directly at Natasha. "Whatever it started as, it's not fake anymore." Other voices joined in. A board member mentioned how Damien had changed, become more thoughtful, more engaged. An investor's wife spoke about how Violet had spent an entire charity event talking with the catering staff, treating them with genuine kindness. Natasha's confident smile began to crack, but Damien wasn't listening to any of them. He was looking only at Violet, at the woman who had somehow become essential when he wasn't paying attention. "You're right," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It started as a contract." The crowd gasped. Violet's eyes widened. "I hired her," Damien continued, his voice steady. "I needed a wife to close a merger, and she needed financial security. It was supposed to be temporary, transactional, safe." He turned to Violet, ignoring everyone else. "But then she made me laugh. She challenged my assumptions. She saw through every wall I'd built and didn't run away." His voice roughened. "She made me want something I'd convinced myself I didn't need. A real partnership. A real connection. Her." The ballroom was utterly silent. "So yes," Damien said, still looking only at Violet. "It started as a lie. But somewhere between the contracts and the performances, it became the most honest thing in my life." Then he did what he had sworn never to do. He pulled her close, his hand cradling her face, and kissed her, not for the cameras, not for the merger, not for anyone but her. The kiss was neither gentle nor careful. It was desperate, honest, the dissolution of every boundary they had carefully maintained. Violet's hands found his shoulders, pulling him closer, kissing him back with all the emotion she had been forcing herself to hide. Camera flashes erupted around them. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Somewhere, glass shattered against marble. When they finally broke apart, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I'm done pretending," he whispered, "just for her." Violet's eyes filled with tears. "What happens now?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm choosing you anyway." The aftermath of the gala dissolved into chaos. Natasha left without another word. The patriarch approached them, his expression unreadable. "That was quite a declaration," he said. Damien straightened, still holding Violet's hand. "If it costs me the merger, I understand." The patriarch studied them for a long moment, then smiled. "My father once told me that a man who can't choose his heart over his empire will eventually lose both." He extended his hand. "The merger is approved. Build something worth keeping. Both of you." Later, in the car heading home, Violet finally allowed herself to breathe. "You destroyed the contract," she said softly. "I destroyed the lie," Damien corrected. He turned to her. "I have no plan here. No strategy. No certainty about how this works." "Neither do I," Violet admitted. "But I know I don't want to live in that penthouse, pretending you're just playing a role. I want you there because you choose to be. And if you don't," she kissed him, silencing the doubt. "I choose this," she whispered against his lips. "I choose you." Scared, uncertain, all of it. The contract that had brought them together was gone. The performance was over. But as the car carried them home, toward a future with no script and no guarantees, they both understood something fundamental. Sometimes, the best things in life can't be controlled, planned, or purchased. Sometimes you have to tear up the contract and risk everything on something as terrifying and beautiful as honest love. And that, they discovered, was worth far more than any merger ever could be.